Hello everyone, I am the Manic Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this 13th season premiere of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from Aetherdrift, Samut the Driving Force. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel at no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help out the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You could also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Samut is a 4/5 human warrior cleric with first strike, vigilance, haste, and start your engines for 3 colorless, 1 red, 1 green, and 1 yellow. She has 2 static abilities that depend on your speed. Your other creatures get +X+O, where X is your speed, and your non-creature spells cost X to cast, where X is also your speed. Even if you're not at max speed, this buff and reduction is not negligible. While there are many ways to build this deck, I decided to go with a token spell route since Samut will reduce the generic cost of those spells while also pumping the power of the creature tokens created. To that end, the deck is very straightforward. It's running all the best X-Spell token creators that I was most successful with when testing. Secure the Waste, Song of the Ten Sands, Awaken the Woods, Finale of Glory, Form a Posse, Fourth Erlingus, Grand Crescendo, Path of the Ghost Hunter, Guard's Call, and March of the Multitudes all create X creature tokens. However, some of these also do other things besides make easy bodies for Samut to beefin. For example, Song of the Ten Sands gives all our creatures haste after resolving. The tokens created by Awaken the Woods can tap for mana, giving us yet another source of pumping massive amounts of mana into future spells. And since they're land tokens, they can't be bounced by an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. The mercenary tokens from Form a Posse could be used to pump Samut for a potential commander damage win. Fourth Erlingus can potentially make us the Monarch. Grand Crescendo gives our creatures indestructible, but we'll see the rest of the protective effects later on. Horn of Valhalla can be cast from the adventure, providing a massive pump to whatever it's equipped to. Path of the Ghost Hunter is useful if you're also playing Plane Chase. And March of the Multitudes has Convoke, so it can be even bigger value for X. While these might seem excessive given that Samut can reduce X by at most for a generic, keep in mind that the creature tokens will also be pumped +4/+O at max speed, so you'd be creating a ton of beefy tokens. Same with permanents like Defenders of Humanity and March of the Canonized. These also count for Samut but enter the battlefield instead since they're enchantments and not instants or sorceries. Defenders of Humanity is great for after a board wipe we couldn't avoid since it helps us recover our board with X more creatures. March of the Canonized gives us a 4/3 flyer during our upkeep if our devotion to white is at least 7. While these X spells can definitely overwhelm the board, max speed with Samut will also reduce the cost of spells like Arachnogenesis, Galadriel Ambush, and Stormherd. Imagine casting either of the first two in response to attacks for just 1 green, or resolving a Stormherd for just 4 mana while having a ton of life. Keep in mind that once you get speed, you're essentially keeping it for the rest of the game. So cloning Samut with something like Helm of the Host means you can double down on the perks of having speed. Since those static abilities are cumulative, you can reduce your costs and pump your other creatures in multiples of your speed. Keep in mind that this will also help Samut copies pump each other, which is amazing too. Anointed Procession, Mondrak Glory Dominus, Ohertak Deepest Foundation, Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, and Primal Vigor are naturally included to make further use of the deck's token strategies. Being able to multiply our tokens are no joke. Imagine equipping Helm of the Host to something like Mondrak or Ohertak. Make sure you get your calculator ready. While creating a ton of tokens and smashing face is the deck's bread and butter, we can't just depend on the commander. To that end, the deck is also running Beastmaster Ascension, Jetmir Nexus of Revels, and March of the World Ooze to boost our tokens independently of Samut. However, having multiples of these effects in play will obviously make your opponents sweat in fear even more. As a bonus, Jetmir also grants amazing keywords to our creatures like Vigilance, Trample, and Double Strike. Speaking of keyword boons, Bow of Nylea, Gimli's Reckless Might, Audric Lunarch Marshal, True Conviction, and Akroma's Memorial also make our hordes dangerous. Giving our attackers Death Touch will guarantee trades, even more so if they have First Strike, which is why Audric is amazing here when combined with our commander. With just him and Samut, all of our creatures gain First Strike, Vigilance, and Haste at the beginning of each combat, which also includes opponents' turns. The bow also has an amazing activated ability that shouldn't be slept on, providing a plethora of utility. Besides swinging in for the win, we can also make the most of our massive board to do other things, more importantly, drawing cards. The deck is running Watley Radiant Champion. It is so easy to gain her emblem after first using her first loyalty ability. She might even have enough loyalty left over to get her emblem once again in the following turn after that. Since the emblem is stackable, you'll draw a card whenever a creature enters the battlefield under her control, regardless if it's a token or not. And since it has a "you may" clause, you can't deck yourself. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and Oran Frostfang also draws cards off of triggers, but whenever our creatures deal combat damage. Fortunately, with the way the trigger is worded, we draw per creature connecting and not per opponent hit, so we can draw way more than 3 cards per combat with these. As a bonus, the Frostfang gives Death Touch to our attackers, and Toski is indestructible. Shamanic Revelation, Camaraderie, Collective Unconscious, and Aftermathing Mouth to Feed will naturally draw us a ton of cards. And since they're not creature spells, we get that cost reduction thanks to Samut. So we can draw a ton of cards at an even better rate than blue since we're not paying so much mana to do so. As a bonus, Camaraderie gains us a ton of life and pumps our creatures +1/+1. While on the topic of Samut requiring us to go fast, she's obviously not the only card in the deck with Start Your Engines. The deck is also running Amonkhet Raceway, Avishkar Raceway, and Muruganda Raceway. These don't even take up slots in the deck. If we get these early on, then we might have max speed by the time we get Samut. And they even have bonus abilities once we have max speed. In fact, other lands that help us get there include Shivan Gorge, Abraded Bluffs, Bristling Backwoods, Creosote Heath, and Sunscorched Desert. Once we start our engines, just playing any of these 4 deserts will ping an opponent, increasing our speed, just by existing in the deck essentially. The Gorge is a repeatable pinging which we can do even if we have no creatures, or if we're in a stalemate. We can even start our engines with Interaction thanks to Outpace Oblivion and Perilous Snare. The enchantment has the potential of getting rid of almost all problematic creatures in the format, while the artifact is a slightly more fragile Oblivion Ring. That being said, it has a bonus ability with max speed that ties nicely with the aggressive nature of the deck. Don't worry, I'm still running cards like Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, and Stroke of Midnight for single target removal, Guthrie Wright's History, Decimate, and Unexplained Absence for multiple single target removal, with Vandal Blast and Blasphemous Act for board wipes. Best of all, once we have enough speed, Samut makes these spells almost free to cast, meaning that we won't need to leave up so much mana to cast them. So good. Same with Heroic Intervention, Galadriel's Dismissal, Teferi's Protection, and Clever Concealment. These are included to protect our board though, which is super important because token decks tend to be as fragile as they are explosive. Best of all is casting any of these in response to our own Blasphemous Act before swinging in with our Horde for that pro gamer move. Last but not least are Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, and Champion's Helm to protect Samut or any other key creature in the deck. Like I mentioned, the deck can function without Samut, but she does cost a whopping 6 mana to cast the first time. Or maybe you want to protect Odric, Mondrak, etc. Speaking of mana, starting column and Racer's Scoreboard help us accelerate our mana while also starting our engines. Not only do they work on their own afterwards, but also have bonus effects once we have max speed. The deck still has things like Soul Ring and Primal Amulet for mana rocks and cost reduction, respectively. But these are just good on their own, they don't start our engines. That being said, Primal Amulet becomes even more busted when it transforms. Tapping Primal Wellspring to cast any of our token spells will double it, giving us twice as many tokens. And if we control any token multiplying effect, the amount of tokens is even more insane. Or maybe we used it to cast an interaction spell. Your imagination is the limit. This card is amazing before and after it transforms. Last but not least, you know I can't go without talking about Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits into the North, and Rapid Growth. Not only do we want to cast Samut as early as possible, but we also want as much mana as possible in order to sink even more into those X spells. We already have a potential 4 mana rebate, so why not sink even more into them? Speaking of lands, the rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. The deck's running all 7 fetch lands, all 3 shock lands, all 3 surveil lands, all 3 snow duels, Jetmir's Garden, Command Tower, and Ancient Tomb, as well as 2 of each snow-covered basic land for the basic land wrap effects and Into the North. As with all of my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Samut the Driving Force. I love that she both rewards for playing creatures as well as non-creatures. In fact, I was also tinkering with a different build for her, where instead of token creating X spells, I was running a lot of the living weapon type equipment. In other words, the equipment that create tokens to then get attached to when it enters the battlefield. That way, the equipment spells get the cost reduction from Samut, while the tokens get the buff from it. Now that I mention it, maybe I can flesh out that idea into an exclusive deck list for my patrons. In any case, if you're interested in the deck list of the token spell version of this deck, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the Brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Man at Kirby, and happy brewing.